In the municipality of La Dorada, Colombia, an old man's body was found in one of the houses on the evening of April 16, 2015, together with his 2-year-old daughter. Due to her disappearance, the victim's 26-year-old partner initially raised suspicions among investigators. However, as the case progressed, it became evident that there was much more to this case than first meets the eye. Luis Carlos Gomez was born in 1954 in the Colombian municipality of La Dorada, which is in the eastern region of the Caldas department. He had always had a fondness for the countryside. During his early years, he dedicated himself to the sale of animals, and La Dorada proved to be the ideal location for his growth since it was one of the designated zones for this enterprise. When he was very young, Luis Carlos bought a farm where he spent hours tending to the animals. Shortly after, he married an unnamed woman, with whom he had his first son, Juan Carlos Gomez. However, the man had a weakness for women and had multiple extramarital affairs. As a result, the mother of his first child, fed up with his adultery, chose to permanently part ways with him. Luis Carlos had other relationships following the separation, from which 2 additional kids were born. He was not among them, even if they were all from separate moms. Luis Carlos was seen as a devoted and responsible parent who was concerned about the education of each of his kids. He made an effort to stay in touch with them and help foster the growth of sibling bonds. Thanks to his efforts, Luis Carlos gained respect in the ranching district and also started a business that would ultimately cost him his life, lending money. He had a large ranch where he spent a lot of time and made a fortune. He also taught his sons that discipline is necessary to achieve goals over time. However, in terms of romantic relationships, things did not turn out as planned because, despite his conquest, he was unable to maintain a stable relationship for a long time. However, everything changed in 2010 when he was captivated by a 20-year-old brunette named Seal, who had recently moved to La Dorada and was employed at a cafeteria where the man frequently visited. Her name was Luz Viviana Marina Palm, and she was her mother's daughter. The only information about the girl I will refer to as Viviano is that she moved to Caldas with her mother after graduating from high school. Using his Don Juan abilities, a 56-year-old guy managed to win a female over. He frequently visited the cafeteria where she worked, and eventually he was able to earn her approval, and they started dating. Since Luis Carlos was nearly 3 times older than Viviana, her mother initially did not think much of the romance. But later on, she accepted their relationship because she saw in him a mature, responsible guy who would love and protect her kid. However, Luis Carlos' children felt that Viviano, the merchant, was just concerned with money and her father's status, thus they had no interest in this union at all. Despite the children's reservations, by 2011 Viviano and Luis Carlos's relationship had grown stronger, and they made the decision to move in together. A year later, they welcomed a stunning daughter named Natalia into the world. Luis Carlos was overjoyed to have a new family member because, at his age, he was now a father once more, and this was also his first female child. The birth of a girl profoundly altered Luis Carlos's life, and he committed to savoring every second he spent with his wife and daughter. At the time, the man subsisted on the proceeds from his livestock sales business. Mostly, though, on the money he lent because that's what made the greatest money for him. Everything appeared to be going smoothly at Luis Carlos and Viviana's home in 2015. But on April night, everything tragically changed in their life. When neighbors found a lifeless body in the home where Luis Carlos, Viviana, and their little daughter resided, the serenity of the neighborhood was broken. After receiving an emergency call right away, a team from the Colombian Police's Department of Judicial and Criminal Investigations responded to the scene. Inspector Juan Jimenez and several police officers arrived at the residence at around 1 in the morning. The front door was ajar. When the officers went inside, they saw a horrifying image of Luis Carlos lying on the bed in the bedroom. He had multiple stab wounds to his neck, and the most startling thing was that, at the foot of the corpse, was his small daughter Natalia, who was only 2.5 years old. The girl was covered in blood and, despite not having any physical injuries, needed medical attention due to severe dehydration. After that, she was given to family members. After assisting with the child, the police continued to search the room on the right side of the bed. They discovered a blood-stained knife and a broken scalpel beneath some furniture. Both items were taken as evidence and sent for further investigation because it was believed that they had been used to kill Luis Carlos. The victim's body was then taken to the morgue for an autopsy. The officer then questioned the neighbors, and one of them, Astrid Rodriguez, said that she had noticed strange things in the house but had never considered that a crime had occurred there. She said that the last time she had seen the owner was around noon on April 14th, 2 days prior to the body being discovered. The neighbors were particularly astonished by the girl's frequent departures from the house alone to get water when she was young. After that, Astrid noted that the door of the house was slightly open in the days that followed, but the husbands were nowhere to be seen. She was unable to comprehend what was going on. When questioned about her parents, she only mentioned that the father was sleeping and the mother was not at home. The neighbors claimed that at first they did not give this much thought, but later on they became aware of something being off, so they decided to check the house and discovered Luis Carlos's lifeless body there. After taking up the case, John Edison Spinoza, the chief of the Caldas Department's murder section, located Juan Carlos, the farmer's eldest son, and informed him of his father's passing. The distraught guy headed straight to his father's house, hoping it was all a horrible dream. However, upon seeing the house blocked off and surrounded by police, he understood that all of this was genuine and that he was going to have a challenging task ahead of him. Inform his 2 brothers who were residents of the Bagot of the awful news that had just come to light. The detective's sole knowledge was that Luis Carlos's murder happened on April 14th in the afternoon, based on neighbors' testimonies. That brings us to the 16th number. The kid had been near her father's body for almost 30 hours before her body was found, raising a number of concerns for the authorities. Who could have the calmness to murder a rancher and then carry out such a repulsive deed, leaving such a helpless little daughter by his body, to be at the mercy of destiny? One question that remained unsolved was the location of Viviano, who was nowhere to be located. In an attempt to learn whether any of the neighbors saw the stranger enter the house or heard anything that day, officers are still searching the area for witnesses and evidence. Everyone in the area insisted that it was quiet and that they had not seen anything suspicious prior to the body being discovered. The police also did not find any surveillance cameras in the area that would have captured any unusual movements during the crime scene inspection. Experts discovered bloodstains on Carlos' women's clothing in the room where Luis was found. Detectives also discovered that some of Viviano's belongings, including clothes, her cell phone, and personal documents, were. When the farmer's eldest son was questioned, the young mother was named as the primary suspect because of the police assumption that she could have departed willingly and might have been complicit in the crime. He validated the hunch about Vivian. The police initially thought it would be a crime of passion, as it always appeared odd to them that a young lady of Luis's age should be engaged in a man named Carlos. They speculated that Viana could have had a younger partner who assisted her in getting rid of the man in order to obtain money. The investigators concentrated their investigation on Viviana's life on the basis of this belief. They spoke with a few of the couple's acquaintances and neighbors. However, they all disregarded the chance that a third party was involved in their connection. They promised that this was a happy and solid partnership. Vivi's mother, Luz Morena, also expressed confidence in this, saying that her daughter was her greatest asset and that she could not possibly conduct such a horrific act, much less leave her daughter unaccompanied unless anything untoward happened. Because of this horrible sensation, she informed the police about her daughter's absence and provided a photo so they could start looking for her. Furthermore, the woman highlighted that Vivian had a tattoo on her left hand that had her daughter Natalia's name. The hunt got on right away and was completed the day following the surprise changer finding. During the course of the investigation, on April 17th, in the afternoon, the police traveled from Lador to the municipality of Narcasel. Near the road, a black bag containing the body of a woman in a fetal position tied with green rope was discovered. Despite the bag's poor condition, the agents were able to identify the victim as being tall, stocky, with dark hair. The woman went to the police station to undergo an examination after recovering from the first shock, and they saw that she had a tattoo on one of her hands that said Natalia. This confirmed that Viviana had informed her mother of the terrible news in front of them. and that her 20-year-old daughter's life had actually been brutally murdered before medical experts determined that she had died of asphyxia and that there had been no evidence of rape in the case of Luis Carlos. Based on the medical examination, it was determined that he had died from multiple stab wounds. By now, all leads to Viviano as the primary suspect in a crime of passion had been ruled out, putting the inquiry at a standstill. Investigators now had to identify the person who killed Luis Carlos's partner in addition to himself. Following their learning of Vivian's death, Luis Carlos's relatives speculated that her death was connected to the issue of a debt that someone refused to pay. The authorities' latest theory suggested that Vivian's death was possibly retaliation for the rancher's actions, particularly for his dealings involving the issuance of money. The eldest Gomez brother reported to the police that all of the money their father kept in the house, roughly 28 million Colombian pesos in cash, was stolen on the day the body was discovered. This information supported the theory that a debtor may be responsible for the murders, as the police also found evidence of document and bill theft. The man's sons told the police that their father did not keep the money in banks, but rather kept it at home, which they felt was extremely risky. With a fresh lead, the investigators got to work figuring out who was responsible for the double murder, reasoning that even the most infamous criminals frequently leave behind evidence. Following that, they re-examined all of the evidence found in the couple's home and looked through the diary, in which Luis Carlos listed the people he had lent money to. Among the debtors on this list, Mario Javier Molina, of the 30 Hexagon, stood out, and the promissory note confirming the transaction vanished. As a result, the investigation concentrated on figuring out who this person was. Mario led an ostentatious lifestyle, which he was able to maintain thanks to money he received from Luis Carlos. The subject came up to the victim and asked for modest loans, which added up over time. The investigators concluded that it was feasible that the subject would get rid of the rancher and his family when he was unable to repay the loans. However, this was not the only information the cops discovered. Mario was more than simply Luis Carlos's client. The guy befriended him and declared that the rancher was his father. Furthermore, the police discovered that although the victim's kids were well familiar with Mario, they disagreed with their parents' attachment to him since Mario had a bad reputation in the community for leading a wild lifestyle and wasn't seen as someone you could trust. Rumors circulated that he was a drug user. Some even claimed that he was a part in risky and questionable commercial transactions. The man was called to testify in the middle of the interrogation. He was completely calm and confirmed that he really was with Luis Carlos and his family that day, but he assured that he took them home in the evening. Then the sons of Luis Carlos recalled that on April 14th, the day that, according to the police investigation, the crime occurred, a man with Viviano and his daughter were in the house of Mario who invited them for lunch. The case was unexplained for several months until something happened in March 2016 that allowed the authorities to provide light on the crime, despite the fact that there was something about this individual that raised their suspicions up until that point, and they lacked proof connecting him to the crime. The detectives' operational efforts appear to have been essential in locating the whereabouts of a lady acquainted with Mario, who subsequently chose to come forward and provide the details of his crime planning and execution. The witness claimed that the suspect, who was there when Luis Carlos was murdered, had assistance from his mother-in-law Alba Liliana Alza Molina. Furthermore, the witness stated that Mario had invited Luis Carlos to a dinner with family prior to April 14th. However, he had first purchased sleeping pills, which he had mixed with the food prepared for the guests. Mario's intention was to leave the couple in a defenseless state so that he could kill them. Considering these facts, along with the circumstances surrounding the methods of time and place that indicated Mario's presence at the crime scene and also the sign's material interest, the prosecutor's office and Caldas requested from the court an arrest warrant for this subject and his alleged accomplices. On March 16, 2015, they were all taken into custody in La Dorada, California, and charged in a hearing with aggravated robbery and aggravated murder in relation to the events of April 14, 2015. After learning of the evidence against the three, Mario's mother-in-law chose to break her quiet and conceal all the horrifying facts of the crimes, even though none of the three had accepted the allegations. The accused said that her son-in-law had her go with him to take Luis Carlos, and the kid home after the sedative was put in. Viviano, on the other hand, was allowed to sleep at Mario's residence. Alba reported that after placing Luis Carlos on the bed next to his daughter, Mario jumped on him and proceeded to cut him with a knife. The assailant instructed the lady to fetch a knife from the kitchen while he sliced his throat, breaking the instrument in the process. He then covered the victim's face and carried out his horrible act while young Natalia slept next to him. After completing the first crime, they went back to Mario's house, where the third criminal was keeping an eye on Viviana while she was still asleep. On July 19, 2017, the Criminal Court of the Lada District Rada rendered its verdict. According to the defendant's mother-in-law, Juan grabbed the woman by the neck and Mario suffocated her with a plastic bag. When Viviana stopped breathing, they took her body to where it was found. Following this confession, Mario and his mother-in-law Alba decided to enter into a plea deal with the prosecutor's office and agreed to the charges in exchange for a lighter sentence after 2 years. The trial of Mario's brother Juan Molina continued because he disagreed with the charges and the prosecutor's office was unable to directly connect him to the murders after the verdict. Luis Carlos's relatives were relieved that the culprits were in jail. It became evident to the eldest son Juan Carlos that Mario had long planned to get rid of his father and take Viviano's life because she knew about his debt. 37-year-old Mario Javier Molina was sentenced to 25 years in prison for the crimes of double murder and aggravated robbery. Alba Liliana Eliza Molina was sentenced to 17 years and 6 months in prison for complicity in these events. After learning of the decision, the mother of the lady whose granddaughter Natalia was still in the care of said that her daughter would not be returned and would not be given back to her parents' grandchild. Mario and Alba are still serving their sentences as of right now. Regarding Juan, his children have not been able to find any information regarding his trial. Every year, people visit Luis Carlos's cemetery to offer flowers and express their love for him. The loss of Luz Viviano, Palm, and Luis Carlos Gomez was tragic for all of their loved ones. Luis Carlos left behind an enduring legacy and many amazing memories, especially for Luz Marina, who lost her daughter but became inseparable from her during her grief, and for Natalia, who was not given the chance to grow up surrounded by her parents' love. Luz Marina is responsible for raising a small child who has come to mean the world to her. Friends, write your opinion in the comments, and also subscribe to the channel and watch my other videos. Thank you all.